Hey everyone, just want to encourage you to find us on your listening platform and give us a rating. Anywhere you listen to that has a rating system, go on over and give us a rating and maybe leave us a review. Let us know your thoughts. These ratings really do help. Thank you so much for listening. On to this week's episode. 13 years ago, Jake Scully was first transported to the planet of Pandora. And now, 13 years later, we revisit him as he has successfully transitioned into a Na'vi lifestyle with his wife. And thus, this is the basic premise for the new film, Avatar: Way of Water, the long-awaited sequel to the highest-grossing film of all time, Avatar. But is 13 years too long? Does anyone care? I mean, people went and see it. It's one of the highest-grossing films of all time, but do we love it? Was this long-awaited film worth it? These are some of the questions we're going to ask today on Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals. We don't have Rolando with us today, but we got Eddie, and we have a special guest. His name is Brandon, and I can't wait for today's discussion. And I am Nicole, and this is Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals, an original podcast about unoriginality. Welcome, everybody, to an episode of Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals. We are sans Rolando today, but we do have Eddie Z.
Hello, everyone.
And we are joined by a special guest, a former colleague of mine and a person who I just love stalking on Instagram because he's just like, he's a geek like us. And we need that kind of energy on this show. His name is Brandon Wei, and he is an admirer of animation, but he's also an animator. He's in the motion graphics world over in Los Angeles. So he's joining us via Zoom. Brandon, so happy you're here.
Thanks, Nicole. Love it. Love being here, and nice to meet you, Eddie.
Yes. This is the first time you guys have met, so.
Yes.
I'm just excited to have you on, just to like kind of prepare, audiences for like your kind of like level of media intake and stuff. Can you share with us some of your favorite properties that you indulge in, whether it's a movie, a video game, comic book, TV show, whatever it may be?
Yeah. So I've been following, I've been following Marvel since, Iron Man, and I love like on the occasional DC movies, and let's say Parks and Recreation, and yeah, anytime Parks and Rec is like in my mind, I'll watch it. And
okay.
yeah, some more recent stuff is what's that Game of Thrones show? That's terrible.
Oh my God, it just won last night too.
I did. House of Dragons. Yeah. So like, whatever is popular, and then every once in a while I'll delve into something different. And but yeah, I'm excited to talk about today's movie.
Yes, very excited. I just want to also compliment you on your Comic-Con outfit. You went dressed as oh my gosh, I forgot his name, Steven Yeun.
Yeah, Jupe Park from Nope.
From Nope.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually went to a screening of Nope in the Santa Monica area like a couple of weeks back, and I went dressed up as that because there was a Q&A. And look, it was like the editor, the producer, then they all, like, the moment I went up to them after the Q&A, because everybody's leaving, they're like, "Were you at Comic-Con?" Because we saw that we were getting photos around, and I was like, "Yes." And I was like,
oh my gosh, that's the best.
They're like, "We're like, yeah, we sent a couple to Jordan." I was like, yes, this is so awesome.
Oh my gosh, so Jordan Peele, you were on his mind. You crossed paths with him.
Yes. No, I mean, I was on his mind. I never got any reposts, but hey,
yeah,
I'll take anything I can get from them. It was so cool. So cool.
That's awesome. And Nope, I think, was one of the best films of last year. So I'm happy to see that got represented by you.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it didn't get represented at the Globes at all. I was like,
yeah, kind of not surprising. Because I don't know, in some ways the Globes are pretty predictable. Last night, the Golden Globes aired on a Tuesday, which I don't know, do people care about award shows anymore that they're putting on Tuesday?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering how much of a vacuum this show is. Are we following certain, like, the recent like newsreel of the week? That's
we are this episode is going to be live on a Thursday, so like literally 2 days ago, according to this timeline. And Avatar did not win a thing.
No,
the film we are talking about today.
I'm not surprised about that,
Oh,
actually.
you're not
Speaking
surprised.
of,
Okay. Yeah.
no.
Well, I was a little surprised. So the best picture musical or comedy went to The Banshees of Inisherin, which I am so happy about because I love that movie. And then best picture drama went to The Fablemans, which I was cool with, but was kind of, I don't know, not in love with. And I was expecting Avatar to at least get something.
I
Um
think I was I think I was one of the few people who was kind of not a fan. Not that I wasn't a fan of the Fable but not really digging it as much as most like people would.
yeah. I mean, a lot of people's critique of it is that it's a little self-indulgent, and that's 100% true. Um and like, how much, do I want to like learn about your backstory and kind of like applaud you for being like who you are, even though you're Steven Spielberg. Like, I don't know, it's just as a narrative thing, but whatever. We're not here to talk about the Fablemans. We are here to discuss Avatar, the long-awaited, in quotation marks, revival of the Avatar series. James Cameron first announced that there would be a sequel to Avatar back in, what was it? I think he, as soon as 2010, after the first film. And then they said it's going to come out in 2014. And then they pushed it back to 2017. And then they pushed it back. Like, they kept pushing it back until they finally settled on December 16th, 2022. So this film's been out for a month. And it's already broken some records. It was the fourth highest grossing film of 2022, but it's currently the highest grossing film of 2023. Not saying much. It's only been 2 weeks. And it's almost at the $2 billion mark worldwide, which is kind of surprising because I don't know if you remember this, Eddie, but last week when I was like, when are we doing Avatar? When are we doing Avatar? Everybody's talking about it. You guys were kind of like, really? People are talking about it? I haven't heard about it. Like, I feel like the word around it is just not as, it's not as ubiquitous as the first film. And I don't know. It's interesting because number-wise, the film is performing incredibly well. But is it having the same impact as the first film? And let's try and remember what it was like in 2009. I mean, this was a huge movie. It's the highest grossing film of all time. And it got so much press. It got so much attention on it. I mean, I remember seeing Avatar. What did you guys see Avatar in theaters when it first came out? Yeah.
Yes.
So Eddie, tell me about when you saw Avatar for the first time.
Okay, I saw Avatar for the first time. I am one of those people that really love the movie. I love the whole special effect. For me, it was like nothing I've never seen before.
Mm.
The whole 3D IMAX experience. Uh, I actually ended up seeing it a couple of times because I was one of those people that was almost addicted to this world, in the sense of the how it made me feel, how beautiful it was, how bright it was, how sense of alive. And I remember I went with my friend Celso, who I went with that the first time, and then we went again the second time. Um, Walking out of the theaters and feel like, oh, the world is so dull and dark compared to the story, having that kind of experience. But I definitely did. I enjoyed it.
Brandon, what about you?
Before I tell you, actually, Eddie, there is actually a condition for it called post-Avatar depression syndrome, because
Wow.
the initial reaction to seeing Avatar for the first time is like, oh my god, there's so many colors, and then you come in, you get out the theater, and you see real life, and you're like, oh, this is bull. Like, there's no.
Yeah, I would say I had more like not depression, but sadness, like post sadness of just being in the real world after that.
Wow.
Yeah. So my experience watching it for the first time was actually when I was working at Disney World in 2009, Christmas 2009 or ish. And we'd already heard a lot because this is fresh out of going through school at digital media at Drexel. And, we all heard about it, but then didn't know enough about it. And then once the press started hyping up, I was like, oh man, we have to see this after seeing the Polar Express, and the only things we knew about 3D animation was what we saw from Robert Zemeckis, and those were terrifying projects.
Yeah.
So seeing Avatar for the first time, and like just my jaws just dropped. I was like, holy wow, the colors are so vibrant. I've never seen 3D done in such a way. Like, it's like I felt like Cameron knew exactly what was wrong with those movies, and then broke everything with this movie. And that was how I got to see it. I got to see it twice, both on IMAX, and I was like, yeah.
Wow.
And I kept on afterwards. So every once in a while, whenever Avatar was on, I'd watch it in theaters and or watch it on TV. And then I saw it again in September when they were getting ready to, ahead of previewing The Way of Water.
This is great because I had a very different experience. I remember when Avatar came out in December 2009, it was a snowstorm where I was. And so the only way I could see it is if I walked to my local movie theater, which was about a mile and a half away. And I had to I had to go down hills, up a hill. I had to walk a little bit on like a highway bridge to get to my theater. And maybe it was that experience that really like affected how I watched it. But after I watched it, I was like, that movie was boring. And that movie, I've seen it before. And I definitely was part of the hate train. I don't know if you guys remember, but like South Park came for it really huge with Dances with Smurfs, which I actually think is such a wonderful episode. I still can hear Cartman doing Wendy as the villain. And yeah, I was just like, why? I don't get the hype. And I've pretty much kind of at least maintained that position of I don't get the hype. I've kind of been like, I've eased up on my criticism of it because I love audience pleaser movies. Anything that gets people excited and to the theater, I'm always going to be an advocate of and always love and appreciate them for. But I just like was shocked because I was like, why do people love this story when it's just a regurgitation of other stories? Like, is it merely just about the visuals? Which is kind of go into my overall feelings about this new film. I didn't also see it IMAX or 3D, so maybe that's also why. But with Avatar: Way of Water, I saw it IMAX and I saw it 3D. Brandon, did you see it IMAX 3D?
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw it on with the high frame rate too, right? I mean,
Yes.
I'm presuming that's how they were all set up. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Eddie, did you see IMAX 3D? Okay, so we all saw it properly, let's say, in quotation marks, because if you're gonna see this movie, you kind of have to go all the way in. Did you guys hear that like people were reporting motion sickness from this movie?
I wouldn't put it past them for that, honestly. So,
I experienced one moment where I got a little dizzy in the film, and it was really early on, and I think it was like when the Colonel was like floating and like the camera was doing like this 180 slow thing, and I was like, whoa, I like felt it moving for a second. Okay, so let's get into Avatar: The Way of Water. Pretty much plot minimal because we'll dive into characters in different moments, but we are returning to Jake Sully, our marine hero of the first film, as he has successfully let's say transitioned to Navi life. And he has a family with Neytiri. They have 4 children, right? Is it 3 biological and 1 adopted? They have 2 sons and a young daughter and an adopted daughter, Rose, who is actually the child of the Sigourney Weaver character from the first film. I think her name was Grace. Does that sound right?
Yeah, Grace was the name of Sigourney's character, and the
daughter
Kiri.
Wow, I guess I don't know why I thought it was Rose. And
you have different Cameron movie.
James, they all start to blend together after a while, especially the ones in water. Yeah, and they also have a best friend. It's a human boy whose name is Spider, and he is the son of Colonel Quaritch, I believe his name is. Yep. Sweet. Awesome. Yeah, and they're just like living their best lives on Pandora until Colonel Quaritch has now transitioned into a Navi person because he is pretty much going to hunt Jake Sully down. He is out for vengeance, he is out for blood, and he's like not going to stop at anything. But additionally, the RDA, I think they're back and they're going like really hardcore now with trying to establish their own kind of sector on Pandora because Earth is still dying. And that's the general like basis for this film. But plot wise, okay, so this movie is 3 hours and 12 minutes. It's very long. At any point, did you guys feel the length when you watched this movie? Like, Brandon, were you like, wow, this really feels 3 hours?
Honestly, I mean, this is going to sound really biased, but no, I honestly didn't. I kind of felt like that it was a very, like, maybe there are some sequences where, yeah, maybe like the pacing was a little slow. Like I was kind of like every time I was drawn back to Quaritch and Spider, actually, I was like, all right. Let's move on. Let's go back to the
Yeah.
underwater scenes.
Yeah, the underwater. Yeah. We'll get to that in a bit. Eddie, did you feel the pacing was strong for this 3 hour, 12-minute movie?
So no, I didn't. I actually, I felt I was immersed in the world automatically. I was back in Pandora. I was in heaven. I think the only thing was, and this had nothing to do with the movie, was that the theater I went to decided to do 45 minutes of previews.
45 minutes. Wow, that's double the normal time.
No,
it was basically the theater for 4 hours.
Did you see?
I ended up.
Wow.
Did you see it at AMC or did you see it because you also have to remember the Nicole Kidman.
AMC, we make movies better. Yeah,
we make movies better. Yeah.
No, you guys go. Did you go to Kerasotis in Secaucus?
No, I went to an AMC more in South Jersey.
Oh wow. Oh okay. Oh, did you go? Oh my gosh, you might have gone to one that I went to. Yeah, AMC plays 25 minutes of trailers. I clocked it once. 20, but that's also including Nicole Kidman's little thing.
Somehow
long.
Heartbreak feels right in a place like this.
It went from 2D previews to 3D previews.
Yes, the Mission Impossible preview was probably my favorite time at the theater. I could not wait for that movie. Before we get into the water portion of this too, we meet the children. Let's talk a little bit about the children. The children are, I'm going to say these names all wrong. Netayam, Lokai, or Loak, Tuk, and Kiri. And I don't know about you guys, but the moment I saw the dynamic of Loak and Netayam, where Netayam's like the perfect son and Loak is the outcast and can never do his brother justice, I kind of knew, spoiler alert, that Netayam was going to die. From the moment, like, it's kind of like, where the story is going. But is it going to do the story well is a different thing. But I saw it coming. What do you guys think about, like, these children? Do you feel like there are too many of them for us to get emotionally connected? Or do you think that their storylines and they're established? Because this is, like, kind of the first hour of the movie. And plus, let's throw Spider in there, too, the 5 kind of kids. Like, what are some of your guys' thoughts on the kids, Brandon?
The two brothers dynamics on point. I kind of saw one of them dying, and I think the more responsible one is definitely the one that was going to go. Spoiler alert. Tuk was the youngest daughter, right?
Yeah.
You have to have the cute one in there, and
me too. Yeah.
The one that I actually was not interested in, but I kind of like understood why he was in there was actually Spider. I mean, actually, I feel like in later movies, like if they're gonna grow Spider's role, I feel like he's gonna be really. I would like him a lot more, but I think just as a technical aspect, I think I appreciated him being in the movie because it kind of like made us remember that everything we're seeing is actually like both real and not real at the same time, because he actually grounds us into this world of animated creatures. He's the only one pretty much at one point out of everything else, like almost like Jungle Book style, with Mowgli being the only real thing in the entire movie. So
yeah.
That was really crazy. So it actually made me realize, holy shit, this is still an animated movie. Like everything we're seeing is not real.
Yeah. It's kind of like watching like a Disney live action movie.
Right.
Because they're primarily animation. Eddie, what about you?
If there were too many kids, no. Well, there was a point where I wasn't keeping up with all the different characters. I do know from stuff that I read way before that the movie came out that that the idea was that it would be transitioning, that the story would be moving on to in the hands of the children, and they will grow up, Dora, and kind of and the storyline would be more about them. So even had this feeling that The Way of the Water was a kind of transitional movie
Mm,
in that.
mm.
Um, from they're moving on from the torch from their parents to their children, and it's going to be the kids figuring this out
Yeah.
as they towards adulthood.
Yeah.
Here,
And definitely like the torch getting passed to Loak and stuff. Mm-hmm.
I did find the spider character interesting, and him having kind of a lot of the dilemmas of what it is to grow up in a different culture and really appreciate that culture, but not truly being part of it. Not having kind of like the truest connection to it because you can't breathe the air. Let's even say that, which
Mm-hmm.
came up a couple of times too. And one of the interesting things I found myself doing was counting the fingers of the kids. Because if you're a Navi, a true Navi, you have 4. If you're a hybrid, you have 5, right? So
Mm-hmm.
some kids had 4 and some kids had 5. So I kind of found that
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, I love that nod to animation because classically, all like cartoon characters have 4 fingers.
Right.
That's always been a thing. So it's like he's kind of, respecting his animation elders in that way by giving that addition to the Navis. But I'm surprised nobody's bringing up Kiri, who is played and voiced by Sigourney Weaver. Sigourney Weaver doing a 16-year-old.
Okay, so I thought that would be like a whole separate thing in itself because
Yeah,
it's
same
so
here. Same here.
it's so fascinating and complicated, and I don't know where they're going. Are they going with a Messiah character? Is this kind of a Messiah character that they're introducing? But yeah, we can talk more about that.
Yeah, no, it is interesting because they're establishing her and Loak in kind of similar but parallel trajectories for the rest of the series. And I guess my big thing was that I kind of didn't understand how she was Grace's child. Can someone explain that to me?
I think essentially that Messiah concept is there. I think because in the last movie when Grace passed away, she said she connected with what was the name of the guy? The Awa. She connected with Awa. And I feel that her Kiri is basically like, she was immaculately conceived, essentially.
It was immaculate. I got it. That's what I figured.
The Immaculate Conception term, because it Immaculate Conception, at least for Catholicism, doesn't negate sex, just negates original sin in conception, really. So like the Virgin Mary, she was immaculate conceived, but parents had sex to have, to conceive her, but the sense of a virgin birth, but then they throw out this theory that possibly that when Sigourney Weaver was in her avatar, that she had hooked up with someone else in Avatar, because there were several scientists around, and everyone had their and long hours in the lab lead to interesting situations.
It was definitely not Norman. It was definitely not Norman. I did not see that thing.
That's what I thought. I was like, okay, maybe they're just not establishing it yet. It's like it's to come to be explained. But
I had a very like Neo-esque from the Matrix sort of vibes with Kiri over the course of the development of the movies. If we're gonna like overthrow the whole spoiler thing, I felt like, oh my god, she's Neo, because by the end of like Revolutions, he's able to connect to the computers outside of the world and is controlling machines. And like literally at that point when Kiri like is underwater and she like summons like the sea creatures of the deep to stop the crab robots, I was like, oh my god, this is it's totally a grab from the Matrix Resurrections.
True. Yeah. No, I agree that there is this Messiah complex going on, and I actually enjoyed her character a lot. It just like I couldn't help but picture Sigourney Weaver on a soundstage, acting out these scenes with the other kids, because I just thought it was the most hilarious image ever.
I mean, granted, Tom Hanks actually did play like a kid in Polar Express. So
Oh god, yeah, but that movie's creepy.
okay, yeah, but I'm not saying that Sigourney Weaver did a bad job. Like it's like this, it's funny, but
It's yeah. So pretty much the rest of the plot comes into motion when Quaritch comes and he starts extreme violence in Jake's area. And I guess the mountain. I don't know the terminologies very well of Avatar, but it's enough violence to scare him and to make him decide that he needs to pack up and leave and relocate with his family, kind of like a witness protection thing. And he decides that he's going to go far away to a different clan and to a different type of Na'vi people who are not forest people, but are water people. So I think the name of the clan is okay, I don't know the name of the clan, but they're the Reef people. And the chief is Tonawari and his wife is Ronal. And Tonawari, I know the wife is played by Kate Winslet, and I think Tonawari is played by Cliff Curtis. I immediately knew it was Kate Winslet. I was like waiting for her the whole movie, so I was like, that's her. All right, so the introduction to the water people and this whole different clan of Na'vi people who even have like different blue colors to them, what did we think about like introduction to a brand new area of Pandora, a brand new thing? Like we're no longer like, if you go to Animal Kingdom and you see Pandora, it's the forest of Pandora. So now we're in a whole different thing. Is Animal Kingdom going to get a water world? Because I would go there. That would be so cool. What did you guys think when you realized, the rest of this movie is essentially going to be in water? Because I was actually excited. Like, Eddie, what did you think about this transition to the water people?
Yeah, I definitely I definitely enjoyed this. Another look at Pandora, another aspect of Pandora that we're exploring. So something new. When I first heard about it, that was kind of corny. Oh, we're going to the sea, next stop, the ocean. But I enjoyed it. I kind of enjoyed this kind of like I'm trying to think of like exactly, but it's kind of like, like it's another step of him where they have to kind of give up their culture, give up their way of life and take up a new way of life. And this time it's about the survival of his family. For him and the survival of his family.
Yeah.
On something new. And make it their home.
And it's
you get the feel of people like who get displaced because of war, families of Ukraine, you get that, kind of vibe of especially of even immigrant parents who are saying, this is our home now, we have to make this work, speak the language, learn the customs.
The immigration parent, for sure. And it's so interesting too, because like everyone has a different dynamic there, but it really does focus more on the children, and they're kind of like looking to assimilate. The older brother, he does very well. He actually has a girl crush, and she comes out of the water like a music video, which made me personally laugh out loud in the theater. But he fits in really well. But of course, Loak, he does not. And, he is constantly at odds and to the point where he has physical altercations with some of the children there, because they treat them differently. You have 5 fingers instead of 4. You guys are from the forest. You don't even know how to ride this animal creature. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? So, like, the dynamics, it happens instantly. Yeah, Brandon, what did you think about when we went to the water world and everything that got established there?
I loved it. Like, just like the change of geography. I remember that was my biggest complaint about a lot of sci-fi movies. Like, just like, and I remember reading that James Cameron also had an issue with it. He's like, he's like in Star Wars, like an entire planet that's a desert or an entire planet that's fire. I think he called it mono ecosystems or something like that. And it's like, that's not how planets work.
Yeah.
So being able to see a diversity in the creatures, like, rather than just having one type of Na'vi, you have multiple variations. It's like very, it's kind of echoes like real life in general. Like, we're not the same race. We're not the same, different types of people across different geographies. So that was a cool change. And yeah, this seeing being able to this like one small thing. I think it was the younger brother Loak that had the crush on
Are
what's her
you
face.
are you sure it was the younger
Hot.
brother and not the older brother who was establishing the relationship? Or
I could be wrong. I mean, they both. That was the thing. They both look so freaking similar. I'm just
yeah.
like there are times I'm just like I don't know which one's which. At least give one of them like a scar or something like that.
It
So
was
Oh my gosh, I guess I totally said that wrong. Sorry. Like Brandon said, they kind of looked alike, and I didn't even really.
Sorry.
I didn't get who Took was until like the last half hour of the movie. So.
Actually, Nicole, if you were paying attention, I didn't mean to actually on that one. You know, yeah, I really like this new change from like to see other. I like this little travel log of a series that James Cameron is having us go through.
No, absolutely. And this is actually when I start getting a little emotionally connected with the film. Because also then when you think about how they pulled this off, it's kind of like astounding because it looks so beautiful. I heard that Kate Winslet broke records for holding her breath underwater. She broke Tom Cruise's record for Rogue Nation. So like that's impressive.
7 minutes, right? Something like that, 7:20.
Yeah. And so just to like think, okay, like this isn't your average like animation. Like this isn't completely done on a computer, by a bunch of talented artists. This is actually recreated on a soundstage to such extensive sets, and that's why everything like flows differently. It feels different than a typical animation film would. So for me, I was just, and of course the introduction of the whale-like creatures. I forgot what they're called.
Haluk, I think.
Haluk. Oh my gosh. That
Tolkien. Sorry.
Tolkien. There you go.
Yeah.
I was instantly smitten, and of course you introduce an animal into the equation. I mean, I'm always going to be sold, and my heart is going to be pulled. My heartstrings are going to be pulled at. But the Tulkun addition to this just was everything for me because Loak establishes a relationship with a kind of like a disgraced Tulkun, if you will, one that, did things differently by the law that the Tulkun abide by. But then, you realize why he did a little bit later. This whole storyline happens. This is when I got into the movie. It took about an hour or so for me to really get into it. And it was all because of these creatures. I think it was also kind of a little unfair of James Cameron to do it because it was so easy and for you to be like so emotionally connected because they are kind of like these whale substitutes. But I mean, whatever. I was all for it. I actually, spoiler alert, there are people who are hunting Tulkun in this movie, and you see them hunt and kill a Tulkun that just so happens to be Ronal's Tulkun. And when she cries over that Tulkun, oh my God.
Oh, they didn't just kill her. They killed the bebe also.
Yeah, they killed the baby too.
God.
Yeah. And the real life parallels become really, really strong. So I was a mess. Personally. What did you guys think about the Tulkun, Brandon?
I'm like a huge fan of David not David Attenborough. Was it Richard Attenborough? David Attenborough.
Yes.
One of the Attenboroughs
David
Planet
Attenborough.
Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So right off the bat, when we introduced the ocean, like marine life and all that, I'm already sold. And just it helped a lot that, we all love whales. If you don't, you're a monster. And the bond, not just like it's almost like the cultural bond between the reef people and the Tulkun is just such a nicely, really. I mean, it sounds easy, but this is just a short, like a real easy way to pull the audience in to feel sympathy for him. But they can't. The fact that they took the effort to kind of include, the cultural aspects of the Tulkun themselves. They're more than just talking whales. They have ascension. They have ascensions to them that's beyond just being able to communicate with a dog or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
They have a culture, but we just don't see it because they're whales. That was a really cool way to kind of grow into a little more complex thing. So when we finally see the whale hunting, we're like, no, you're not. Yeah, you're hunting, but you're not just hunting whales. You're hunting people down. And and they have no, they're just choosing, even like they said, they have a code of not killing anything and not fighting back. So it's like, yeah, they're making it easy for you because they don't want to fight back. They're choosing not to fight back. And that
Yeah.
was that made that double, triple folded all that heartbreak when you finally come to that moment when Ronald is like just devastated at the death of her pen pal, her friend
Yeah.
and her
Almost
baby.
like her familiar, to
Yeah.
use a term from the Golden Compass. Yeah, I mean, it really hits home, this kind of like overall message too about, conservationism, but also like respecting the land and the people that you live with, which I think is one of the major themes of Avatar. There are probably there's a bunch, but for me, like, it's not just your fellow man or people who look differently than you. Like, it really focused now on animals. And, I mean, animals are passing from our lives and we treat them terribly. And I think a lot of people kind of don't like being quote unquote preached to when it comes to that. But like kind of really displaying the cruelty then and the indifference that we treat animal life, I think was important to show because it was real. You cried when you watched that. If you cried, you should have cried, because you know that this happens in real life. You know that this is a real thing that happens, and that was the hardest. And I think that the one thing that works for me, mainly with Avatar, is beneath it all, it's this kind of like huge conservationist, film where it's like we need to protect and we need to save and we need to respect this planet. I know James Cameron, although he has been called out, he has dedicated a lot of the last 13 years since making the first Avatar film to conservationism. And he is actually like, he puts his money where his mouth is. Maybe not as much as some people would like, but he is doing something. So, Eddie, you have any thoughts on the Tulkun?
So it's interesting because for this, the way they're represented is almost being in the sense of that they were like the spiritual relatives of this tribe.
Yeah.
So this was like her spiritual sister.
Mm-hmm.
And when the human scientist that was studying them, saying that their brains are so complex, that he's pointing out things of like they can process philosophy and art and beauty, and to think of like just because something is shaped a certain way or uses a different medium of existing doesn't mean that they are less than than let's say we are, almost like Pandora was probably more their world than anyone else's. We're rating it by intelligence, we're rating it by morality and spiritual development, then they're high up on the chart. But you do, you get the sense of like what you think of like how are we also in the process of doing this to our own, the animals that live on this world, other beings, other things that live on this world, that we probably have no idea how they process the world and the beauty that they see.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it does kind of like, it definitely pulls on those heartstrings, and makes you wonder. It's like, Earth, they're coming to Pandora because they already fucked up Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So you're already coming and you just think of just like humans, they're just like, they're garbage. When you like, they're garbage. Like you up everything here and you're just willing to devastate a whole planet once again, so you can so you can live here, so you can build your bullshit here. So
I love how
we didn't learn anything.
No, yeah, I love how so many movies are rooted in like that basic concept. Like, we're idiots, we're to blame for our own demise, and it's so funny because we'll constantly do that as a kind of like thesis statement to all of our media, but like it doesn't sink in when it comes to real life.
Right.
So it's just a nice touch of irony.
It's kind of funny, like it's kind of telling that like the two biggest like I recently just I saw RRR, which is also about totally super anti-colonialism.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have this movie that is like, anti-colonialism in that world where the human race in general, just really, we're going to be like this in a couple hundred years, and it's pretty amazing. It's amazing how those two movies actually really drew in a massive draw of people, because we all pretty much can accept, just as a general cultural across the board, colonists really imperialism suck in general.
Yeah.
We can all agree that being mean to other people and other animals is just bad. Just
I mean, I hope so. I hope that's one thing that we can walk away from Avatar: Way of Water agreeing on. So pretty much this whole film kind of climaxes in a huge James Cameron set piece, which I was like, James Cameron is back, baby. I was so excited for the climax of this movie, where shit just goes down and everyone gets involved. We got Quaritch and his tools. We got people, working for the government. We got the Tulkun killers. And then we got the whole reef people and the Tulkun joining in on the fight. And everything climaxes. Jake and Quaritch fight. Spider and his loyalties are questioned. And then, there's this big kind of like maze of all of the characters kind of being stuck in his sunken ship, looking to escape. I mean, it kind of goes on, and it's this huge action piece that recalls James Cameron's Titanic, recalls Aliens and the Abyss. He loves water. I thought it was so well done. That's, again, James Cameron was back. I mean, this guy knows how to do action. He might not write the best dialogue, but goddamn it, he can make a good action set piece. And again, we talked about Kiri's establishment as kind of like this messiah-like creature. She's able to rescue her family due to her being so in touch with the water of Pandora. So much happens. You guys have any thoughts on the finale? Like, Eddie, you got any thoughts on that whole ending piece? Oh, when also the oldest brother, we already said it, he dies.
I mean, I loved it. My heart was racing throughout those whole scenes. I mean, it was giving me all that I wanted. I was just like, yeah, down with those military humans and their destructive. And
take that, Edie Falco.
Yeah, it's like, and the guy with that super duper harpoon thing. I was just like, when is he going to be crushed to death?
Yeah,
theirs
was so satisfying.
That was such a good payoff. Oh my god.
Yeah.
We were like, every screening, both screenings, people were just like screaming, yeah. And it was, oh my god, it was so great.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was kind of nonstop. And it's everything that you want out of like a big operatic action set piece. Brandon, any thoughts on it? Or
like, honestly, like, if anybody else if you ever want to do a sinking ship into the middle of the ocean sort of like action set piece, it's James Cameron's your man for sure. Like, it was amazing. And I'm kind of wondering how he did all that. Like I can't even picture how they did all that stuff in real life with like in that tank. And I would really like to know how that all came down in the BTS stuff, because wow.
No, did you watch any of those? Or
I watched a lot, but nothing specific. It was all really mainly about like, the technical stuff, like the camera rig that the camera set up, the sensor set up for the animation, which is insane. Like they actually had to create a whole new thing for it in general, because because they had to do motion capture underwater, which is like crazy.
Yeah. And it's so crazy because I mean, we just spent a whole bunch of time on the story and stuff, but you guys went to see Avatar in IMAX 3D, so you went for the visuals. And this is kind of where I start to be kind of like in the middle of how I feel about this film. Because if you think about it, if this film was done live action, or if it was done traditionally, would this film have worked? Would it have gotten the audience that it got? Like, are we there to see this story, or are we there to be immersed in this world? And do they go together? Is it a different experience? Like, I don't know, like, how much do you guys feel like the story for Avatar is actually important to the legacy of Avatar? I don't know, Brandon, what do you think?
I talked with a friend who's a writer, a filmmaker actually, and we were kind of talking after seeing the movie, and we both agreed that the simplicity of the story made, like, was a draw to get everybody into the butts in the seats. It's not a Marvel movie where you have to know, so and so's backstory. You have to see the post credit sequences. It's basically pretty much humans are evil, Navi bad, Navi good. And you have refugees. Everybody can associate with those stories and the characters. The children miss their homes. Actually, you were kind of sobbing about the whales. I was actually really like, it hit a nerve when Took kind of said, "I just want to go home." And I'm just like, I get but but like, I think ultimately, even if it wasn't it wouldn't have done as well for sure, because the visuals and the fact that it's an IMAX movie, it wouldn't have done as well as if it was in live action. But we had, like, I feel that Cameron has a really good way of kind of like finding like the main through line in his stories that kind of like forgives the faults of like the dialogue, but gets you drawn in for the action or for the set pieces.
Yeah.
Titanic, it's just a sinking ship, yes, but then you throw I still think personally that's my favorite Cameron movie. Even people can argue with me all you want about aliens and all that.
It's Aliens.
It's Titanic. but he managed to find, like, get us, like, to this day talking about Rose and Jack's, like, love story.
Yeah.
Hackneyed though that love story was, it's like, it still drew us in, and that was made us like sit down for 3 hours, and I can watch it over and over again. And so it's there's a give and take. I don't think it would have done as well, but it still would have drawn a lot of people to the theaters, I think.
Yeah. Eddie, what about you? Do you think the story is what, is the key to Avatar: The Way of Water?
Very much agree. Very much agree with what Brandon said, but the definitely way the Pandora is, the world is, it invites you, it seduces you, it captivates you. Like, this is like what James Cameron said, it's like Eden with teeth and claws.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like Eden. It's like this beautiful world that calls you for connectivity, because everything is connected in Pandora. Everything's connected. The plants and the animals, it's all one, and the people, it's all one. It's one living massive thing that is just calling for life. So Pandora in itself is complex, and then you have this story. It's definitely simple. It's about family, it's about home, it's about found family almost too, because Spider is part of that story. It's about what it is to be invited to a new community and be accepted into that community and being welcomed too. So you have a lot of these great but simple ideas that definitely draw out the humanity in us. Like, what are we doing? I mean, I'm thinking about like things that we achieve, and then the things that we take for granted, and remind us of our own personal journey, our own stories, and our and just like, what's our responsibility to even our our environment, our world, to the things around us.
So I mean, I am leaning towards that. I like this movie because I enjoyed it 100% more than the first, but hearing you guys kind of like feels, I agree with it, because if you listen to this podcast a lot, guys, Rolando and I always have this kind of major disagreement about what it is that makes a film. Rolando thinks it's story, and I disagree. I think that it's visuals, and I wouldn't even say story, I would say content, because not every film has a story. and maybe narrative film does, but there are all types of films, and films go about, you know, conveying what they want to say differently. So here is presented a film that I think the story is not what is driving people to the theater. It's the experience. It's an experiential film. It's like when people went and saw 2001: A Space Odyssey, or like when people heard about Star Wars. It was just like something that they had never seen done, and an immersive kind of experience, and they went there to be immersed in it. And so in that way, I love this film. But story-wise, it was predictable. I've seen it before. And maybe I've seen it done better, or at least told better. But does that matter? You know, and it's something that I'm still kind of like, before we hopped on the call, you know, I told the guys, I'm like, I'm in the middle somewhere, because, you know, I can't 100% praise it because it's unoriginal, but it's the most beautiful, like strikingly beautiful unoriginal film I've ever seen. And it has transcended the type of filmmaking that is pretty much going to be the standard in 10, 20 years for Hollywood. But I think this is also a good portion for us to throw in some criticism that this film has faced. So I'm going to read a little bit of a BuzzFeed article that came out on December 14th, 2022, and I'll put it in the show notes. Critics called Avatar: The Way of Water, quote, unacceptably, paternalistic, end quote, and condemned its depiction of the indigenous Na'vi as, quote, both romantic and ahistorical. At the New York Times, David Brooks summed up the shallowness of Avatar. It rests on the assumption that non-whites need the white messiah to lead their crusades. So, we did say that Kiri is the messiah, and Kiri is not a natural-born Na'vi.
Right.
What do we think about this criticism? Like, do you think, yeah, that's 100% right? Do you think it, though, adds to it? Do you think it takes away from it? Like, I mean, this film is far from perfect in terms of its story, and it does have problems. You know, I mean, we're watching people who are clearly nods to people, you know, of Africa, to indigenous people of South America and other parts of this world. Like, and it's a little weird because Kate Winslet's playing one of them. You know, different, like, rich Hollywood people are playing them. So, you know, it kind of feels weird. But I thought this was a really interesting criticism. So I don't know. What do you think about that, Brandon?
So I tend to kind of put away like the subtext that a lot of like critics kind of throw into it. Like I'm not saying that it's not something I don't consider, because for example, like, yeah, Jake Sully is definitely a white guy. I even thought that with the first Avatar, yeah, it's a white guy coming in, basically, you know, taking in their culture and then becoming that's where the problematic part of Dancing with Wolves come in, like, you know, or Last Samurai, even, where he takes in their culture and then he just basically moves in with them. But at the same time, it's not like he's taking that culture back and then coming back to Earth and then just, selling Na'vi weapons or selling Na'vi merchandise or something like that. He's coming in and really trying to save them in a way, and kind of like, because ultimately they've all had these underlying hostilities about humanity to begin with. Jake Sully is just coming in and he's like the catalyst, because now we have somebody who actually who acclimated and respects everything that culture has and why they should not be touched. It's not like he's inviting people to come in from the Earth to come learn and live within the culture. He's like basically saying, okay, well, I'm it, cool. Maybe Norman and that other guy can come in and then, you know, become avatars, but otherwise, leave them alone. Yeah. I mean, were we going to call Jane Goodall like the white messiah of chimpanzees? I don't think so. But so like, that's the kind of thing that I'm kind of feeling is like, you know, I'm on the fence about. Like, I don't think James Cameron was trying to like make any other message aside from the ecology, kindness, you know, empathy. But if you're thinking of using this as an example to kind of talk about, you know, like cultural or race issues, I feel like you're kind of like, this is outside of Cameron's depth.
Yeah, well, let me throw one more quote into the mix then. LA Times, Justin Chang, he wrote that, quote, James Cameron has always been married to and complimented by an unapologetic cornball classicism. So, James Cameron's corny. He loves his romantic and his classic tropes. I mean, same thing that I felt when I watched Avatar: Way of Water was the same thing I felt when I watched Top Gun Maverick, one of the best movies of last year, which was, wow, they don't make movies like this anymore. They don't tell stories like this anymore. It's not very tongue in cheek. It's not ironic. It's not like winking at me. It's taking itself seriously, even though it's the cheesiest thing I've ever seen. And I kind of felt nostalgic for movie going experiences like that. So I agree with you, but it's like, but is it a subconscious thing? Like this representation
Right.
issue.
You can't help but think it. I mean, we're all like, we're all also aware of the Hollywood machine also. It's not like, we're like, so if it at least gives you like a moment to pause and think, I think that's already a really good thing. Like, like we're all thinking, why is Jake Sully have to be the one that kind of comes in and, save the day? Why couldn't Natiri come in and be the one that kind of drive home everything that, that makes Pandora so important? Give her a sense of urgency. And I think her urgency actually in the movie, in Way of Water, just her maternal instincts, I think that was just beautifully done. And now there was also that moment where there was a pregnant reef person going into battle, like, absolutely no, I mean, that was pretty awesome. I mean, was it I feel like it was much better done again than I've always still feel that way, but it was much better done than the Women of Marvel seat moment in Endgame, like when all the women are like, we'll do this, and I'm just like, oh god.
Yeah. Eddie, do you have any thoughts on this?
I think I'll pass on this one. I think I really have.
Oh god.
You're not gonna touch that with a 8-foot pole?
They need to kind of like chew on it a little bit more, because me, I have a very forgiving heart when I watch these movies. I'm super corny myself, and I love all these kind of like these tropes. I'll eat them up. Because I know there are underlying stories that we continue to tell each other, that I feel like are just so important to tell.
Yeah.
This is one of them. Then this will take another shape down the line in a couple of years. We'll see another version of this.
Mm-hmm.
Of someone discovering something and realize that we have to protect it.
Yeah.
And and the whole thing of the indigenous people, what we've done to natives or Native Americans, these kind of things of respect the planet. So these stories will continue to reappear, and I definitely, I think it's very important. I think we need stories to inspire and make sure that we don't forget.
No,
our
100%.
history is full of us. Humanity has not always been at its best, and we've shitted on each other.
Yeah.
And can we do better? The question is, can we do better?
Yeah. The one thing that I wanted to kind of add to that, and to the overall conversation, is that you could really make an allegory to, say, the trans community using this film. You might not be born a certain way, and you might feel like, you were born the wrong way, and you want to transition to who you feel like you really, truly are, at least in your soul. Does that make you any less a man or a woman or a person? Like that is one that not a lot of people, at least that I am aware of, I might be ignorant to, discourse about this, but that is an interesting parallel. Instead of thinking of it as like kind of like a race thing, even though I get it, it is very much a race thing. There is a different way, because there are people who live like this. They exist in our lives, the whole trans community. This is something that, that can be really seen as something that is, I think, supportive of that community and makes a good argument, for that community. So that's just one thing that I wanted to throw into the mix. All right, guys. Well, we've been at it for a bit now. Do we have any closing remarks before we close up for Avatar: The Way of Water? Brandon, any closing thoughts?
When I was kind of preparing for this talk, I actually kind of realized I was trying to figure out for the longest time when did Quaritch become a Navi? At one point during the course of the movies, because remember during the briefing when he's watching his OG self talk to him, he says, if you were wondering who you might go after on my untimely death, it'll be Jake Sully. I'm like, when did you realize that Jake Sully was the person that might kill you? Because he's talking about this over the webcam, and they're like on their way to Earth, and he already targeted Jake Sully. But I'm like trying to figure out at what point during Avatar. I know we're not supposed to talk about Avatar 1, but what point at Avatar 1 when did Quaritch, realize he was going to have a clone of himself, a Navi clone, and then anyways, that was one thing. And then the other one was about Norman being, a Navi. I was trying to figure out when he got his new body, because where did the money come from to grow a new body?
I love these nitpicks. Yes,
I sound like I'm nitpicking, but anyways,
no, but it's valid.
Like, I was like, did he do a crowdfunding? Is there crowdfunding like in the year 2200 or something? But anyways,
lose his body in the first one.
Yeah, Norman died. His avatar died in the first one. Like he gets riddled with bullets, and then literally Norman wakes up and he's like, because he thought he got shot. Like, so his body's destroyed. But so maybe he had a backup. I don't know. Maybe they prepared a backup. I don't know. But but they made a point in the first Avatar that this is a very expensive piece of body that they're harvesting, because they have to grow them and develop them and transport them to like light years to Pandora. So yeah, where'd that money come from?
How does money work on Pandora too?
Maybe crypto. Maybe crypto's a thing in the future. They really got their shit together. And
I think so.
If anything, humanity can unite with it's colonizing other planets and also
cryptocurrency, NFTs, baby.
Yeah, man. Like for some reason, when they were talking about how much that vial of immortal juice was from the Tolkien, I was like, I think he said like 85 million or something like that a pop, and I was like, that doesn't sound like a whole lot for immortality juice. One little vial, 85 million. I feel like people would throw more money to kind of ask for that. You know what I mean?
Seriously.
Like I don't know. Anyways, I don't know. Maybe James Cameron can explain that in Avatar 3. The
fire within.
The cost of dollars or something. I don't
know. Eddie, what are some of your closing thoughts?
I'm wondering if they're gonna bring the Sigourney Weaver character back. So like connected underwater to the underwater tree of life, and she had that encounter. Makes me wonder if like her consciousness is somehow like downloaded within Pandora, and even the avatar itself is still alive. They're still keeping it alive. So
honestly, that's how I thought Quaritch was going to come back. I thought that somehow like Awa was going to be like, you know what, I want this guy to understand like, what our world is like. And then she would like bring his consciousness back into a Navi somehow. So, but he would come back and he would play basically a teenage Quaritch or something like that, like Navi Quaritch. But
I hope Sigourney Weaver is downloaded, and then she can become like HAL 9000, and maybe she's the villain for the third Avatar, and like she has to defeat her own mama or something. You never know where they could go. That's good. Somebody tell James Cameron that.
Well, Cameron did say that the fire avatar, that he's going to throw in something a little more like a darker side to the Na'vi culture, whether with the Ash people. I think he's calling the fire people the Ash Na'vi. He mentioned that for that one, there's going to be a little bit more. It's not just going to be about the sacred, the sacred like relationship of Pandora. Now he's gonna introduce a darker side that's a little more like, maybe they do sympathize with the Marines. I don't know. But
is that the third one or the fourth one?
Third or fourth, I'm not sure. I'm just but way of I drank the Kool-Aid, the Avatar Kool-Aid, so I'm game for 3 or 4. Keep him up.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely getting 4. I think at some point he said 5, so we'll see if this film has to make $2 billion in order for it to move forward with next films. I mean, they're almost there. They're at $1.8 billion. So
let's put this way. I'm way happier with this than I was finding out that Fantastic Beasts was originally gonna have 5 movies. I'm like, there's no freaking way.
So unnecessary. Yeah. And that whole last film, as much as I do enjoy it because I love Harry Potter, it was like nothing. Like you could just throw that whole movie away and like still be back on track to the plot.
Oh no, yeah. But yeah, so I'm game for Avatar, and I don't know what they would do. Like I think the hype machine really did help. Like Pandora, I don't know if you guys have been to the park. It's freaking gorgeous.
It's so great. That ride is my favorite. They
did some amazing stuff with that entire land, and I was skeptical about it when they first announced it, but then going there for the first time, it was just like, all right, well, Kool-Aid drunk, I'm game. Or whatever that drink was, that the slush, the Na'vi slushy was.
Oh, that I didn't have. Yeah, I don't drink the drinks. I just ride the rides.
Yeah, they had some foods there too. They had like some local Na'vi delicacies. So
yeah, I guess I didn't do it right. I'm just like all about the rides. So when I go back to Disney, I gotta do it.
I just find it funny because like the park kind of implies that they did that the native Na'vi of that area like encourage tourists to come visit Pandora, which is ironic because in the movies like. No, they weren't supposed to. That was the whole point of it. I was just like, okay, well, this is kind of counterintuitive.
Yep, humans just ruining things again.
Yeah, humans coming in, like, leaving all their crap. Because you literally see this crap strewn, like marine stuff, like strewn about in the parks. So it's like, oh, well, great. We're still littering, even, other planets, even in real life. So.
Have we learned anything? Probably not. But all right, guys. Well, this is it for Avatar: Way of Water. Have you seen it? It's like been out for a month. You should probably go see it in IMAX 3D before it closes. You only have like 2 months left of it being in the theaters. But if you have and you have any thoughts on this episode, email us, remakesrebootsrevivals@gmail.com. You can hit us up on Instagram @remakesrebootsrevivals and on Twitter @remakes_podcast. And if you enjoy this podcast, please find us on your podcast listening platform and give us a rating. And if you can give us a review, we would appreciate that too. Always a pleasure with you, Eddie Z. And Brandon, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. I love being able to talk to you guys about it. I haven't spoken to anybody really about it after seeing the movie twice. So.
Oh my gosh, yes, you saw it twice. And he saw it in LA. And he has really cool film experiences over in LA. I'm really jealous. So
come on out.
All right, guys, until next time, stay unoriginal.